Yeah, good people, man. Blessed be your host, Caleb Smith. Today's guest is one of my favorites, man, on the platform. This brother gives out so much great information. I already know that you guys are tuned in once you saw who it is on the title, but the good brother, Aboriginal Power. How you feeling, man?
Peace and blessings, bro. You already
Yes,
know,
sir.
man. It's always a blessing to come back on the platform.
Yes,
See y'all
sir.
growing and doing y'all thing, man. It's always a
Man,
blessing.
humble, brother, humble, always, man. During these times, bro, I think about you all the time because on the news, right, we see black people being afraid about DEI being taken away. Black people saying, "Are we really citizens?" Then I see black people saying, "Hey, we ain't going nowhere. This is our land." Smokey Robinson, bro, he has a real viral clip saying, "I'm American. I'm from here. My blood is from here." So I'm like, older generations, they be knowing too, because all of those stories are passed down. But starting off, man, AP, how should black people feel during this time where black people feel, scared about deportation and all these other things going on? How should black people feel during this current time?
I mean, we get I think we have nothing to worry about. Matter of fact, I know we have nothing to worry about. We're Americans just as much as anyone else to claim to be American.
Hmm.
And as a matter of fact, we are the only American
Right.
uh in this continent. So as everything is happening, we should just be sitting back on our porch watching what's going on. As long as it don't affect us or encroach on us, which they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Hey, everything is good. They're shit. Where they going to deport us to?
Exactly.
See now, when that happens, now we're getting into legal boundaries, which we got treaties and laws in the place to protect us.
Hmm.
As naturalized and natural born citizens.
Right.
You know, so nah, we don't have anything to worry about being deported. But there's a lot of people here that is disguised and look like us
And that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
that they it might be a little shaky for 'em. Might be a little
Indeed.
shaky.
Indeed, man. Bro, my first session, you went crazy. You had so much great information. This session, what message would you like to share with the people who be tuning in?
Man, I really just want to give a message of unity, peace, love. I think that's something that kind of get overlooked within our community. Something that uh maybe even looked down upon within the modern times of how we express ourselves. Maybe it's looked down upon as weak or docile, but expressing yourself and showing love to one another has always been something that has been expressed and amplified within the indigenous American so-called black communities. And I think one of the reasons that we don't do it is because of two particular reasons. Uh, Social articulation has been taken away from us with the evolvement and the path that we have taken with social media and technology. A lot of stuff is not contact, face to face conversations, mostly online or chats, and within those variations, you lose things that are context, or you can't. True feelings is not being conveyed properly because tone of voice also is an expression as well. And so I believe that social articulation is what we lack amongst our community. I think that's something that we should start embracing and taking heed of. Also, controlling of our emotions. A lot of us are emotionally attached to various different things, and if someone knows that if they attack it, you become emotionally defensive. And if once someone knows that, they can take that and the attachment that you have and move it around, which is going to move you around, which means they control you by your emotions. So we must have a border and a boundary in front of your emotions so you can't be controlled by that. That's one of my main messages for the people.
Hey, bro, that's a bar. Emotional control, right? We see black people, indigenous people, us being misnamed, declassified, and people get upset about Black History Month trying to be
Mm.
taken away or things like this. So we can view things as both a blessing and sometimes it could be a curse. Now, with this quote unquote Black history, how do we start getting more in tune with our indigenous history? Because people only think about 1619 and up, as you know, AP. How do we start tapping into, man, we was already here? How do we start on sharing that information now?
Well, I think we first must go to the beginning that they try to give us the beginning, right? Which is 1619. And they give us the 20 odd Africans coming over here. And once you narrow down and really challenge mainstream academia, you'll figure out that Africa in the actual John Ross letters from the Batista ship doesn't even mention Africa at all. It doesn't even mention Africa. They said they went to the Caribbeans, and these was Caribbean Negroes. The term African was only revived into when modern revivement came into documenting this. So I just think we got to challenge the narrative, look at original documents, primary documents, not secondhand or third hand documents. Look at the primaries. It is what it is. They can't change.
Facts.
It's already written in history.
Bro, what happened to all of our treaties, right? Knowing that we were true to this land, indigenous to this land, if we had treaties in place, right? How did they started to get ignored? How did they start to get pushed to the side? And I'm white and I say so. I'm gonna take your land, I'm gonna pillage, displace you, all of that. How did all of those things happen?
Well, I believe through various different circumstances. I believe that the true wars that happened amongst early colonizers happened because of the encroachment of the land. And to try to reconcile, there's always someone that's level-headed out the group that was able to speak on behalf of the tribe, and they try to come with recognize a reconciliation. An agreement, and mostly was often broken, which led to often more wars. So you look at treaties been trying to been made since the 1650s. They all was broken, ignored, or backdealed. You feel what I'm saying? And so I don't know what happened to them. Maybe most of these treaties was just verbal conversations. Maybe some of them was written down in some of the earlier record buildings in Virginia that was originally burnt down and then burnt down again in the 1700s. So what we looking at could, if we do find any treaties, they could be revived, and we do got to look at it with a open lens.
Facts, bro. Man, as you know, in the comment section, people they about to be going crazy, right? For young brothers, young sisters that's trying to tap into this history, right? All of us have stories, especially like in the deep South, about our grandmothers or great grandmothers telling us where we came from, who we were, whether you was Blackfoot, Cherokee, anything, right? How do we start? What is step one of finding like proper documents, learning more about who we are, where we come from here in the South?
Well, say that there's a couple ways you can do oral traditions and customs and documentation that your family has collected through generation and generation. And then you can go and do your ancestry.com uh documents, and then you can go and find your ancestors that's older that you maybe have never even knew before. You can go to their hometowns, and then you can go and look, excuse me, at the vital statistic records in that hometown and go and get those records of where they was from, where they was born, where they was married at, where they died at, if they had a bank account, was it still open? Was it a freedman's bank account? So all these particular things. Do they own land? Do they have cabin land? Do they have, other stakes and other stuff? And that's when you start getting into all these particular boundaries. And recently, shortly after the Civil War, which was a legal war, it wasn't a physical war. I don't believe it was a physical war. And there's two reasons why I don't believe it was a physical war, because all the wars in America has two things: a declaration and a treaty. The Civil War has neither one, which leads me to believe that it's more or less a legal war, what we more like a courtroom battle instead of a physical battle. And most civil suits is in the courtroom, anyways. So I think that's when the game changed. The mislabeling, the union, the whole system was a change. You got the Daughters of Confederacy that literally changed the depiction of how the indigenous people and Americans was portrayed. It went from the brown, tawny, copper tone to the pale skin Asian phenotype.
And bro, what's so crazy is that same group, people, man, look this up. They actually are behind most of all the textbooks that our kids have, Daughters of the Confederacy. So that's very, very interesting, man. Wow, bro, you said something big about the Civil War. What other components do you think happened during that time if you don't believe it was an actual physical war? Do you think everything was like taking place in the courtroom all
Not
the time, or how do you
everything,
feel?
because
Yeah.
the main overall system that we call the Civil War, the freeing of the slave,
Mhm.
that happened in a legal case. But at the same
True.
time, in 1861 to 1865, in the same areas that the Civil War supposedly took place, you got the Chickamauga War. You got the
Wow.
Muskogee Creek War. You got the
Yep.
Gullah Wars. You got
Wars.
the
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yamasee Wars. You got
Yep.
the Florida Wars. You see what I'm saying? So we got a
Yep.
bunch of wars that's happening with indigenous peoples, which is documented. They got declarations and treaties for at the end of these wars. They really took place. And so what we're looking at is a bunch of things taking place that ultimately led to us being defeated in the courtroom.
Jeez. Gullah Wars. What exactly happened during those wars? Who was in those wars? Because man, on social media now, I'm so proud of our people. I see, man, people posting this more, saying, "Hey, during the Civil War, this is what led to that." So, what was going on during those wars of the Gullah Wars?
Well, there's a good book that I got, and I'm gonna give it to you at the end of this. It's called "The
Okay, bet.
Forgotten Cause of the Civil War,"
Mm,
and in a nutshell, which ultimately leads to your Fourth Amendment citizen as well. We're talking about the freeing of slaves, but we got a perspective that we was the slaves. But as an indigenous mindset, we know we was the landowners and Europeans was the slaves. And there's documents on this from Virginia
yeah,
law to North Carolina. I think we got into some of that last time in some
yeah,
of our conversation. So ultimately, we're looking at a reverse continuation of what's going on. We're talking about a stripping of the power from the indigenous peoples. We're talking about a stripping of the power of the indigenous peoples after through a legal battle, mainly probably because we didn't show up. I think that maybe even when we get into some of the um you don't show up three times, the court is dismissed type thing. I think that started happening right around that time frame, uh during those 1965, 68 time frames.
for sure, man. Part one, bro, that was a great conversation, man, where you just broke down about land ownership, slavery in further detail. Why right now in 2025 is us Aboriginal descendants here in the Americas, us owning land? Why is that so important right now during this moment?
Because the land was never supposed to be owned by nobody else besides indigenous people. And this is
Right.
why when you see landowners in these rural counties, mostly pale skins, no offense to any pale skin listeners,
Yeah.
but and most of you guys will tell me that you're not just pale skin, you got a 1/16 Native American ancestor. This is what a lot of these Pelicans say. And this was their way to land ownership because only indigenous people could own land here. So that was the way, that was the reason why it was so important to claim indigenous ownership and to strip people who was indigenous away from that ownership by
Wow.
misclassifying you into Negro, black, and colored, what we call it today.
There we go, bruh. So, us being misclassified, a different group. We saw what just happened with in November, right? And all the black people who were trying to vote, talk about vote, vote, vote. But bro, hearing all the good things that y'all are cooking up for here in Atlanta in April, I'm excited about that. How should we as indigenous people start to come together outside of voting and politics all the time?
I think I, I think we kind of made a small fraction in a window, and we
Yeah.
made a small fraction of a crack. And I believe it gave us an understanding of how to really bust through the glass when it comes to this political seating. We got behind something that maybe thought that it would that we could get tangibles that was probably listening to the American people. I can say that some things was probably listened to that the American people amplified and spoke out about. But I think ultimately, as American indigenous people, we should have an American indigenous party for us to run up on. And anyone that helps supports that to run up under that as well and vote up under that. We need our own seating at the political seat so someone in position can speak on behalf of us instead of people that is not us speaking on behalf of us because oftentimes they don't have our best interest.
Yeah, indeed, bro. Kendrick, as we know, not like us, right? And
Yeah,
I
right.
think about $5 Indians, right? Doing more research on that. Here in Georgia, that's a real big thing because we have so many non-indigenous people claiming to be Cherokee or claiming to be this, claiming to be that. how should we go about, I don't want to say cleaning house, but trying to fix that up? Should we just do our own private thing, or should we even try to approach going into those Cherokee tribes, or is that already like a done deal where it's just racist? They're gonna try to do some janky stuff. How should we go about organizing and things like that right
Well,
now?
that's a very, very good question. It may be even difficult to answer, and some people's may opinions may vary on this. But I believe as we sit back and look at some of these indigenous tribes and Trump activating mass deportation amongst illegal immigrants, we started to see an encroachment and a prowess amongst indigenous tribes. Native American tribes was even being raided by ICE. I don't know if you know that
Wow,
or
I
not.
didn't know that. I didn't know that. Wow,
The Apache, the Hopi, and I believe some Lakota tribes was ran down on,
wow.
and even got illegal immigrants from some of those tribes. So I think sometimes we just got to sit back and move methodical. I don't think we have enough economic footings to do anything because we don't. It'll come out of our pockets, and we don't. We're not even in economic footing and stability to even do anything. First, we must work on economic footings within our own communities, which ultimately will catapult us into political seating because it takes money to get into these positions. So I just think we should work on that. And then once we get into position, then we can start working on strategic strategies on how to work on this misclassification for my people and the wrongful classification of other people that is now borrowing the set title. And maybe we might not go back to those old titles. We might genuinely develop and create a new term that is organic to us with our own meaning and our own definition, with our own power behind it. And finally, create a word that best describes us without having someone else describe us. Maybe that'll be the ultimate plan.
Hearing that instantly, man, I think about during this current time, right, in the culture, foundational Black American. Hearing that name. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's very specific though. I love that because sometimes people can twist black or twist because Elon Musk, he's African American. So terms like that, anybody can like co-op. So do you feel like we should say freedmen? Should we say Aboriginal, Indigenous? How should we go about trying to get reparations and then also our name? What do you think our
Well,
collective
me
name should probably
personally,
be?
I like the term Aboriginal, and but me, I don't
Yeah,
argue with names because most of them are classifications or titles that someone else put
right.
on us that over time we accept it. So I don't really argue with nobody's title, but I choose the term Aboriginal because when I
Mhm.
look at the word American in its earliest definition as it's being defined, it mentions the copper colored races are Aboriginal people. So I want to amplify the term Aboriginal of America to strictly define as American, which I am, which means the
Yeah.
first, you know.
Mm.
So, and it's even in its definition, the first Americans are Aboriginal, which now are applied to Europeans, and we see Europeans now claim American too. But out of that, within the definition, we know who the first. So, uh, I like the term American, Aboriginal, but I don't argue
Yeah.
with the terms.
I love that, bro. Aboriginal, hey, you can't fight that. So, hey, it is what it is. Indeed,
A lot of
man.
people do though. A lot of people will say, "Well, ab being away from." You ever heard that?
Yeah, I heard somebody say that before too. I've heard somebody say that.
Well, if you go to the entomology breakdown, it says ab means birth of. Ab
Wow.
means birth. To give lineage. It means birth, lineage,
Mhm.
away from. You see, so when somebody gives birth, the child is usually going away from the mother. That
Yeah.
don't mean she's not of the mother. You understand what I'm saying? So
Wow.
they just take stuff out of context sometimes.
Indeed. AP, what did ancient Aboriginal culture look like? Because right now everybody says the culture, but what did our real culture look like before it was influenced by Europeans?
Okay, I'm gonna say it like this. Europeans want their future to be like your past.
That's a bar. You might have to say that again.
Yeah, yeah. the European
Wow.
colonizers want their future to be like your past. So your past was very advanced. It's similar to what you call today. Like I said, 3,000 years ago, we created urban development, apartment complexes, civic centers and plazas, and sanitations and transportation systems. All about 2,000 years ago in North America amongst the Mississippi Valley. So urban culture is ancient amongst indigenous people in
Yeah,
America for sure. So
man.
what it looked like, it wouldn't look too much different than today. Mindless the immigrants, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang, bro. So, all right, tell me this then, brother. How did Montezuma, I believe, how did 12 Spaniards or a small group of Spaniards conquer such a developed city? How did that happen, man? If you know.
Well, that's a very long story, but I'm gonna try to break it
Yeah.
down in a nutshell. We know Montezuma lived in colonial Mexico, and I'll break
Right.
down where colonial Mexico is as we dialogue. But he was part of the Aztec civilization. And
Mm-hmm.
Aztec doesn't mean a particular people, it's an era of a particular people. So you could almost say these are Olmecs, Mayans, and Incas that at
Mm-hmm.
this particular time is now coming and mixing with newly
Yep.
arrived Asians or Eurasians. So by the time 1500s come through, you got mixing going on. You got people that is under the jurisdiction and control of the indigenous people like Montezuma, and a couple of those was breaking away from the prison camps, and that's who ultimately Cortez ran into and snatched up. And those people ultimately led Cortez into the land of Tenochtitlan or California, roughly where UCLA is today, which is
Mm.
colonial Mexico, is where Montezuma would have occupied. It's a famous
That's
picture
heavy.
of him meeting Cortez down there.
Got you. So I see this common theme, bro. Europeans, colonizers always need a person on the inside to take down what we got going on. In the future, man, with the movement, everybody's waking up. How can we start to protect somewhat and make sure that we aren't infiltrated from within, which can then tear everything down?
Right. Well, mixing is going to be something that's going to continue to happen for the
Right.
rest of our times. But to prevent us from being outed out by someone that's maybe mixed is to prevent someone that's mixed to get into ultimate highest political power or position of control. And with that, they will still reap the benefits as anyone else that's full blooded. They just won't be able to get into position, the highest position of control. And this maintains the integrity of that, where we'll not be backwashed by someone that may have a split understanding or ideology based because they're a split in genetics and ethnicity as well. So
Wow. Man, we see so many kids now, and the parents are complaining, unfortunately, about my children aren't being taught who they are in school, which should be expected, right? How should parents right now, young parents that's in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, go about teaching children true Aboriginal history?
I think they should do it in whatever way that your children can understand it, which I'm hoping a lot more of the Aboriginal people out there with these understandings and these imagination and such creativity that our people possess, that we start getting into children books and children animated and cartoons and animated versions to tell the stories of who we are. I think that we should just give it to them in any form, whether it's in hip hop and cartoon and puzzles and video games. Uh, they gave it to us in the form of TV shows. You ever heard of the Legend of the Hidden Temple?
No,
Uh,
I
it
haven't.
used to come on Nickelodeon. It was a bunch of old
Oh,
man
wow.
heads talking to you, and it was the game that you used to play. It was a crazy game. Yeah, I think it was the Legend of the Hidden Temple, something like that.
Temple Run too. That was a game that they used to use with the Olmec statues. I remember it. Yeah, and their faces. That was a real popular game as well.
Nah, there was a. I'm trying to figure out the
It
name
was
of the.
separate though. Yeah, it was his own show. I'm gonna look it up right now.
I think it was Legends of the Hidden Temple or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Typing it in. Legends of the Hidden Temple. Yep, Legends of the
Yeah.
Hidden Temple. Three
And
seasons,
and if you look on
1993.
her, that's an Olmec Mayan face that you see right there. And on the
Yep.
game show, it would be these rocks that was
That's
talking
crazy.
as kids play. It's almost like a Ninja Warriors for kids back in the day.
Wow.
It's pretty good show
Wow.
coming up.
Wow. Man.
So just little stuff like that they throw into your face, little innuendo. So a little more of that amplified in today's time because children and the teens these days are more receptive than us. They process stuff faster, so we got to
yeah.
be able to dish it out a little faster than what. So we got to keep up
Agreed,
speed.
man. Agreed, brother. AP, I know you probably can't talk about it too much, but next month you about to have a real dope lecture, right? The title of it, when you at first told me, I was like, oh shit, bro, that's kind of hard. Can you please just break down? I already know everybody, y'all got to pull up, pay, come to the lecture, but just
It's gonna
tidbits
be one of
of
them.
ancient history and hip hop, like that whole
Yeah,
connection, because it's a whole
ancient.
debate right now, as you know. So if you can, just
Right.
please.
Hip hop is ancient in America. So ancient
Yeah,
hip hop in America, we're gonna be breaking down that. Me and my brother Chief Holiday. Salute to my brother Chief Holiday, salute to him. So we're gonna be breaking down this lecture on 420, this up and coming month. We're gonna be getting into the logistics of the five elements of hip hop, and we're gonna be showing the historical ancient versions of those elements and how they was being occupied amongst ancient civilizations from North America, Central and South America. It's gonna be dope.
love that, man. I love that. What do you think, in your own words, our future looks like for Aboriginal people here in America? What does our future look like to you?
That's a good question. Um, Hopefully our future will be obviously advancement. We shouldn't dwindle down from where we are, should be on the elevation. But overall, I think we should have more harmony amongst our people.
Mm,
I just think we're a little out of tune. We're a little out of frequency. We're trying to get back and find the right radio station to get the frequency right. But I just think us being on more of a harmonized stage, in tune with each other, more unified. I see an Aboriginal future where a lot of stuff that we pay for, we probably not gonna pay for. You know what I'm saying? I believe that we have the technology that we don't have to pay for certain things that we pay for. Now I'm not gonna get into what, but
yeah, no, I
I'm gonna
get it.
say just things will be a lot better. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be greed and fighting, and it should be less crime because you should have everything at your fingertips already, and you shouldn't have to pay for it. I think everything should be, which leaves your mind more focused on how to build and elevate and innovate. If you ain't got to worry about working or doing everything because everything paid for, you ain't got to worry about food because it's already there. You can focus on
Wow.
just your imagination. And I believe that's what got us to where we are today. It's focusing in on our imagination, our creativity, because
Mhm.
everything we see, the phone, this computer, this TV, your headset, this pitch.
Yeah,
A man put it here. It came through their
right.
imagination. They became evolved and understanding into their creativity and to the point where it manifested into where we're using it today. That was once somebody thought. It didn't exist.
Mm. Hearing that, bro, that's so powerful because I think about our future with us actually coming all together. And also, I think about Black Wall Street too, right? If you can, brother, please just break down the Aboriginal history that people don't like to talk about when it comes to a Black Wall Street. That wasn't just a mistake that they're in Oklahoma out of all states as well.
Yeah,
So,
Black Wall Street. We're gonna first go to Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina.
hmm
And we're gonna talk about the indigenous high aristocrats or noble people that ran that city, that thrived and created everything that that booming industry was built off of, and how it was hostilely took over by a malicious group, or what we call a coup d'etat. Is because someone from the inside let somebody from the outside in, and that's ultimately what happened. We had a coup d'etat, and a lot of those people got out of there. They didn't want to get behind the hostile judicial system. A lot of people don't hightail it and leave these particular places. Black Wall Street left because of the judicial system was corrupting it. It wasn't because of the everyday person. It was the judicial system that was the criminals, and then they hid behind the judicial system for the protection. So it's just like a bunch of government officials and public servants doing the crime. How you gonna get that solved when they're the ones you supposed to call that supposed to help you? You know,
Exactly.
and that's
Exactly.
ultimately what happened in Durham, North Carolina. It happened in Rosewood. It happened in Wimbledon. It happened in Tulsa. It happened. You feel what I'm saying? It happened all
Mhm.
over.
Yeah. What do you think is the overall gripe from the European when they first met us? Because clearly this whole thing is not working till this day. Like right now, we see them still trying to fight back, implement new laws, or whether it's a mass killing that's happening, or is this that's going on. It's like it's this constant struggle. What do you think is their main gripe when it comes towards Aboriginal
When they
Americans?
you said how did they feel when they first seen us, when they first came in
Yeah,
contact with us?
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
good
yeah.
question because I don't think it's the way people think what it is now. So
Right.
let's go back to before contact with Europeans. What was the indigenous people doing? Same thing we doing now, thriving. You
Yep.
feel me? You what your granddaddy did, working in his
Mhm.
garden, fixing stuff, just regular life, the stuff that elevate. You people created inventions to help their everyday situations that make
Right.
it easier in their everyday life. These are why inventions ultimately happen. It wasn't for everybody else's thrill. That only became a thing in the day of patents. But
Mm,
so ultimately, I just think that it was just like what it is now. You know what I'm saying? People here thriving, needing work done, and it became where now we need physical labor. We started hiring slaves. Who was the slaves around the world historically going back to 500 BC?
wow.
Slavics and Europeans. They've been enslaved by every continent on the Eastern Hemisphere. We just got on late around the 1600s.
Mm,
1616s, we created the penal system, which is where landowners leased out their land for penal form expenses. Penal form is land that was leased to prisoners that was being released. And the 14th Amendment said if you go to jail and you're incarcerated, you're a slave. So we're talking about the original slave system
yeesh.
here.
Wow.
So your ancestors created the penal system. They ran it.
Mm,
The same prison pipeline they got you in now, you created it. The same stripes that you put on the prisoners and them suits that go around you, and when you in them stripes, the black and white, we did that to the indigenous peoples. The indigenous peoples did that to foreigners that came here 3,000 years ago. They put blue dye in them on their body in a circle all the way around, resembling stripes, and they will bound their hands behind their back. Fast forward to 2025, you're in that same prison penal system that you created, and you're in them same stripes that you once used to put on the people that came to your land forcibly. So it's been a whole switcheroo. Everything is in reverse right now.
AP, as a kid, I would hear stories, right, where certain black people they would say, well, Native Americans own slaves. How do you feel about that statement? Is that like a half truth, or some people they'll try to say, well, they tried to buy their cousins, their brothers, and then have them free. Which
When we
part
say
of
Native
that is true?
Americans, we talking about like Native Americans, like
And
not our
see,
people.
And
Like
see,
we're not
that's the
talking about
part
our
right
people.
there. And that's the part right there as well that I would be like, who are we talking about? Because hearing those statements that natives own slaves, it's like, which ones? So how do you feel hearing sometimes people that they'll try to say, well, Native Americans, they own slaves too.
Well, I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't disagree with it if we're saying a
Okay.
native of America as formed as an
Mhm.
indigenous aborigine, because we
It's
have
it's the
laws.
words. Got you.
We got laws in Virginia Assembly records in 1670. Y'all look it up, family that's listening. The 1670 Virginia Slave Act
Mm,
strictly talks about Negroes and Indians being prohibited from owning white slaves in that particular county of Virginia. You can't put a law out prohibiting Indians and blacks from owning white slaves if they never own white slaves. Like they're not gonna put a law into place if it never happened. You see what I'm saying? So
indeed. Indeed, man. Earlier, bro, you dropped a real nugget that most people might have even skipped over about Montezuma was actually in present day California, right? what happened to the maps? How is everything displaced? Because, like what you said, we got Olmec statues that people found in Georgia. So clearly something was going on and something's not right because they tried to tell us that they were strictly in Mexico. So who changed all of these maps? When and how did all of this happen?
That's a good question. The map's been
Thank you.
changing since day one, and I'm
Mm.
gonna break down where the Olmecs is truly from. Maybe on another episode, I'll
For sure,
prove
for
to you
sure.
that the Olmecs come from the Mississippi Valley and the Ohio
Mm.
Valley. I'm gonna prove to you guys that they're mound builders. Uh,
Wow.
you see what I'm saying? What was your original question? My bad. I apologize.
Nah, bro, you cool, man. Earlier hearing you break down that
Oh yeah,
Montezuma,
Montezuma.
yeah, in California. How did that
Okay,
change? How did that happen?
so you got the American, a Mexican War. You familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Well, at the end of that war, there was a particular treaty called the Treaty of Guadalupe
Mm,
Hidalgo. Is where they leased out land to America. Mexico land was leased to America. It was 7 states. One of those 7 states was California.
mm,
So that was colonial Mexico and historical Mexico as well. We can go look at Montezuma Castle, which also is in California. It's not in Mexico.
wow.
Well, it's in colonial Mexico technically, but
Yeah.
yeah. So it's 7 other states that's with that treaty. That there are 7 other countries that was leased to the United States that became states in the United States. So you got California, New Mexico, Wyoming, Nevada, Texas, Florida, and I forget the other state
Mhm.
that was all
Sheesh.
considered colonial Mexico.
So out west, right? We got New Mexico and we got all these other states, right? This is desert. Where are people out there too, even in those open lands? And do you think that those lands it was desert and just empty how it is right now, or were these like popular cities, mega cities, things like that?
Well, we got to understand we're talking about an advanced set of people that had focused in on a particular set of science and mastered it. One of those
Hmm.
science wasn't just agriculture. One of the other science was irrigation. So they have
Irrigation.
the unique science of going to places that didn't have water and making it have water. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I don't
Yes, sir.
I don't think it was a big task. We go to Corral Supe in Peru, which is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. I think it's 5,500 years old, predates Egypt by 1,000 years. So by the time that was thriving, Egypt wasn't even thought of yet. They haven't even started constructing their first pyramid. It's in Peru, and that's in the middle of the desert. But during the height of Corral Supe, it was an oasis that they deliberately created through irrigation science. So
Come on, man. Bro, you going crazy. AP, I'm gonna probably ask you like three more questions because hey, I gotta save all the good stuff for when you come in person. So
no
I got
problem.
you, man. Indeed, bro. Grand Canyon, do you think that that was an ancient Aboriginal civilization? Because something does not look right, man. It looks like something it had to be there. How do you feel about that
I've
in the
been
Grand
hearing
Canyon?
about this Grand Canyon talk way for a long time, and been into the earlier stories about the Egyptian artifacts that was found during the Smithsonian mission that was allegedly didn't happen. That did.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of conspiracies behind it. But what is not a conspiracy is that if there's restrictions and laws on the Grand Canyon, and there's tons of areas that is in this restricted area that you're not allowed to travel in. You're not allowed to travel in certain places in the Grand Canyon, not because it's a national forest, not because it's in a national park. It's literally in the middle of a Grand Canyon, a freaking desert. And so maybe there are some things that they're hiding there. I don't believe that there's an inch on this North American continent that you can't find historical references to a civilization that may have been buried, destroyed, that came prior to the ones that we talked about today. Our civilization just didn't start 5,000 years ago. Human species in America has been around for over 100,000 years, contrary to belief. You go to Richard Cerruti site in California, and Tom Demeray, the leading archaeologist, recently just found human remains going back, or human activity going back 130,000 years in California.
Man, come on, man. bro. So that's perfect timing because my next question, it was really about to focus on that standpoint because Pan-Africanism, right? You covered that in part one. Excellent
Right.
job. But we've been told that Africa is the oldest. It's called Mother Africa. It's called the motherland. But we don't talk about America like that. But we keep getting evidence that is just as, or if not more ancient. Do you feel like America potentially is our true motherland and not Africa? How do you feel about that, AP? I
Mm.
think, all right, cool. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Your phone,
Yep,
can you hear me?
yep,
You kind
yep.
of went out the last 20 seconds. If you could repeat that last 20
Of
seconds.
course. Of course, bro. Of course, man. We've been told that we come from Africa, right? And
Right.
Mother Africa is referenced as the motherland. However, to your point, you found, or there's been findings, research in California, 130,000 plus years, Mississippi Valley, they have more pyramids opposed to Africa. In Peru, like what you said, more ancient. So do you feel like we got it all the way wrong? Is America actually our motherland? How do you feel about that statement?
Right, that's a good question. If you Google this right now, you can say how many pyramids are in America. Google will simply tell you there's more pyramids in America, more than any other pyramids on the planet combined. You can take every other country, China, Africa, Australia, Europe, and combine all the pyramids that they found over there, and it still wouldn't add up to the ones that's in America, which is crazy. And yes, they told us the out of Africa theory, right? Have they ever told you a challenging theory?
Never.
You've never heard of a challenging theory to the out of Africa theory. Because if it's one way theoretically, it could be another way theoretically. So
Mhm.
have you ever been told the into Africa theory?
Never.
Is that the reason you see diversity in Africa? That's what they talk about. Well, Africa is the motherland, got the highest diversity. Well, does originating somewhere creates diversity, or does people going places create diversity? Let's look at diversity on a smaller scale. Let's take New York for instance, one of the most diverse places in North America. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Why is it diverse? Is it because everybody originated there?
All of the immigrants there. You got Irish, Puerto Ricans.
It's
Yeah,
because
you got
everybody
everything.
moved there. So we can use that same perspective with the out of Africa theory. Why is Africa so diversitized? Why is it so have so much diversity? It's because people went there thousands and thousands of years ago to save their civilization from whatever cataclysm or situation that forced them to leave their homeland.
Hey, you're gonna make some people very uncomfortable, and I love that, man. Hey, you just trying to make them think. AP, bro, you've been great. Very last question for you. What is one Aboriginal ruler ancient that we should study and look up to?
I'm gonna give you two.
Okay, let's do it.
We're gonna go with the Southern Muskogee Creek chief, also better known as Emperor Brim. He went by the name Emperor. A lot of
I'm
people don't
writing
know
that
who we
down.
had kings and emperors here, and one of the Muskogee Lower Creek, Muskogee Creek, was named Emperor Brim,
Got you.
Brim. And the other person I'm gonna give you is Chief Titi Sung's father, aka Chief Tammany of the Lenni Lenape. Chief
Got you.
Tammany of the Lenni Lenape. And if you go look up Samuel Janey's Morrison's book dealing with the eyewitness accounts from William Penn, he actually describes uh Chief Tammany and his crew, his warrior chief tribe crew that was with him. And it's pretty interesting. So
Hmm.
uh go look up Chief Tammany and Emperor Brim.
I got you, bro. And on that standpoint, very last question, I promise you, brother.
No, you good.
Hearing that, man, I remember growing up in Savannah, Georgia, like going on trips to Savannah, there was this old chief that they would always tell stories about from the Europeans first encounter. And it was told that he was like 7 foot tall. And then I would hear other stories of like other chiefs who were 6'7", 7 foot tall. And then I would hear stories about giants here in America. Do you think that our people had some type of
Well,
connection to giants or like taller people?
according to Eastern Hemisphere standards, the average person in the Eastern Hemisphere in the 15 all the way up to the 1800s were averagely 4'10" to 4'11".
Wow.
And the average indigenous American or Aboriginal averaged at 6 foot. That means women and men as well. And sometimes often as tall as 8 foot, as we see with Chief Tuscaloosa.
I was thinking about him too, Chief Tuscaloosa. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his son was 7'5".
I didn't know that, man. That's insane.
Yeah, his son name was Black Panther, as a matter of fact.
Hey, you can't make this stuff up, huh?
You can't make it up. I promise you, you can't. And what's crazy is back in the late 1500s, uh, which we're gonna get into some of the what the Confederate really means. These was
Mhm.
terms that was used amongst indigenous peoples long before Europeans got here for a band of nations coming together to reconcile or go to war with another nations. And you got
Wow.
some of the Olmecs creating a confederacy with some of the Southern Creek and the Muskogees from Georgia. I got
Mhm.
documentation on it.
Come on, man. Come
We
on.
got the we got the annuals and records of America
Wow.
literature. The book was published in 1832.
Man, Aboriginal Power, brother. I appreciate you, man. That was a phenomenal conversation. Part 3 in person,
I
that's
can't
gonna
wait.
be
It's
even
gonna
more
be a
phenomenal,
movie.
man.
It's gonna
Yeah,
be a
bro.
movie.
Look, hey, we just had to like serve him something real light, little appetizer. But man, I appreciate you, brother, for your time. You are a great resource for history, information. I salute you, man. But part 3, I got way more questions for you. So, man, I appreciate you again, brother. Thank you for your time.
Man, I appreciate you, and I want to leave y'all with this before we go. As American Aborigines that's growing, that's understanding, that's coming into this, be patient, and just look at your stuff thoroughly. They try to bury us in the dirt, family. Colonization, Western education, this whole system try to bury us in the dirt, not knowing that we were seeds. And look how much we have grown, family. Shout out to the Indigenous Aborigines in the building, family.
Mic drop, man. Pastor Aboriginal Power, y'all. He gonna leave y'all with a word, man. Powerful, bro. Thank you, man. Stay up, stay safe. See you in April, brother. And you
Man,
be
peace
good.
to
All
you.
right.
Peace and blessings. Peace. Thanks.